Hello and welcome to the Protolabs Inspire on Exchange podcast. This is the show for engineers and designers to connect with industry leaders and academics to learn more about what's happening in the industry, how to innovate, and the opportunities that lie ahead. Today, I'd like to discuss networking. Some consider it a new trend, others argue that industries have been built on it for generations. Is it at risk of becoming a buzzword, or should it still play a pivotal role in manufacturing today? I'm joined by Richard Spears, Marketing Manager at PP Control and Automation, who not only is an advocate of networking within his own career path, but has also developed a networking platform specifically designed to help manufacturing businesses outsource, scale up, and make their mark on the industry. Alongside him, we're joined by Rowan Crozier, who is CEO of Birmingham-based Brandauer, a 162-year-old metal stamping and precision tool making specialist who is chair of Make UK National Advisory Board and co-chair of the Industry Advisory Board for Birmingham City University. With a unique perspective on networking, Rowan has built a bespoke apprenticeship programme which encourages apprentices to focus on communication and networking skills, as well as the technical element of manufacturing. So much so that Rowan has been awarded an MBE in 2024 for his services to manufacturing and enterprise. So huge congratulations for that. Great to have you both with us today. So let's jump right in. In 2024, what would you consider networking? I mentioned about the idea that some people say it's a bit of a buzzword and they don't quite understand it. So, I mean, over to you guys. How do you consider it?
Rowan, do you want to start?
Yeah, of course. So for me, I think it's fairly straightforward. I think networking for me is collaborating, working with, talking to other people and other businesses to make your business, your job, your objectives easier or better delivered. That's the straightforward answer. Do I think it's old, new? I think it's been around for many, many years. I think the way we do it is becoming easier and more powerful. And there's lots of innovation around promoting networking and making it easier to access. But fundamentally, it's there to make your business better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that what's important when you think about networking or collaboration is that you have a goal in mind, and throughout industry, perhaps we need to find a common goal. And a lot of it is about sort of joining the dots as well. We see a lot of good networking and collaboration done in isolation or in clusters. And I think the next step now, what will sort of evolve networking in 2024 is UK industry coming together and joining some of those dots.
I think there's one other point perhaps I should make on this as well, which is a fundamental unwritten rule to networking. And it works time and time again. You only get out what you put in. You need to go into any networking opportunity, to use that buzzword if you want to call it that. Bear in mind, you might get nothing from it, but you can contribute to it, if that makes sense. And invariably, if you go with that mindset, you will almost certainly benefit from it. It's always worked for me, and I'm sure it's worked for multiple other businesses that take that approach.
It's kind of, yeah, sorry to put in there. It's the laws of reciprocation. I think that's what networking is all about. I think if you lend a helping hand, there's a good chance that somebody's going to do the same for you. It might not be immediately, but later down the line. And I think it's fundamentally that's what collaboration is all about. It's lending a hand. It's being helpful.
Yeah, that point's sort of really interesting about if you get out what you put in. It seems that in sort of recent years, maybe the last 5 or 6 years, it really seems to have ramped up with, people's personal approach to it. You see with things like LinkedIn and people really trying to sort of collaborate and get into these communities. But then also from a business point of view, it really sort of seems to be encouraged. How within your businesses do you sort of encourage and foster that community feel and that idea of networking? How are you promoting that?
I can certainly speak from PP's point of view. We're no strangers to collaboration. It's part and parcel of the culture, and that comes from the top down. Whether it's certain vertical markets, or whether it's about continuous improvement, or there's a number of topics and things that we can pick up on. And we understand that collaboration and networking is the quickest, most efficient way to get to the end goal. So yeah, we nurture that throughout the whole organization. We're looking at, for example, at the energy market at the moment, but we know there are lots of people out there with more experience in these markets and more know-how and understand where that market's moving. Those are the sorts of people we need to get in the same room as, have conversations and see where the opportunity lies and what we can do to collaborate and network. I think that's important as well. You talked about LinkedIn, and you can throw lots of technology and tools at this idea of networking and collaboration. But actually, I think the best collaboration starts by getting in the same room as people, being face to face. I think throughout the pandemic, of course, we missed that opportunity. Of course, we have platforms like this, Teams and things, but there's something a bit more fluid and natural about the conversations when you're face to face and networking. So I think that's really important point, is get in the same room as people and speak about mutual opportunities and benefits.
Yeah, from our point of view at Brandauer, it's something that I learned quite early on in my career, was that you learn from other people, and everything, particularly anything of high technical content you sell, is as much a people sell as it is a technical sell. So that means you've got to get in a room and share, collaborate in a powerful way. I can think of 3 or 4 examples where, in different areas of the business, collaboration has led to significant success. Whether it be, the 3 or 4 I immediately think of, we've won business by sharing exhibition space with other manufacturers, and I mean significant contracts that were sort of game changing at the time. We've successfully diversified into new markets by collaborating with other innovative companies that are looking to develop products that are outside of their comfort zone to do on their own, but in a collaboration of 10 or 12 manufacturers, OEMs down to very small micro SMEs, we work together to deliver that, which gives access to new markets for all of the individuals involved. And then education. So again, is another big area for us. We have a 15% strong apprentice count in our business. I really saw that somewhere else and thought, this is vitally important. I saw that another manufacturer who was way ahead of us doing it. And we've really, dare I say it, pinched the idea, but in a very collaborative way, and evolved it from there. And we now find ourselves collaborating in partnership with a training provider to deliver professional training. So not only is it sort of collaborated in the area of education, but also it's given us another unique selling point to our business.
Yeah, I mirror that point as well around, Rowan mentioned sharing exhibition space and things like that. You can think of collaboration in terms of cost as well. How can we share cost, whether it's, getting a huge space in an exhibition hall where you may never have been able to do that as an individual business, or sponsoring an event or advertising. There's lots of ways that you can collaborate. It's not, there's, marketing, for example, it's my field of expertise, and without collaboration, then there's less opportunities. I think Rowan pointed that out, yes, with that exhibition example.
We've also seen, in times of adversity, it's nice to have strength in numbers. So if you're talking to other like-minded businesses, and whether it's a recession, a pandemic, it's really nice in a safe environment to be saying, this is what we're facing, guys. And most people in that space will be saying, yeah, us too. Has anyone taken a step forward and done anything with it? And it begins those sort of safe discussions to give you a few options. Now, it might be that you choose to ignore all of them and carry down the route that you wanted to do, or it might be you get that nugget that's really, vital in terms of, the right way forward. It certainly helped us hugely during the pandemic, where nobody knew, inclusive of our government, what on earth was going on and how to deal with it. We were doing stuff, making decisions without any, I suppose, guidance initially. And it was so much more powerful to be able to do that as part of a network or as a group of collaborators.
Yeah, I think it's since the pandemic, it really has made businesses, it's no secret, like think about the importance of resilience and what have you. And just that point there, it's so pure, isn't it? The strength in numbers. We're always so focused on what we do as an individual business, but as an industry, we're all pulling in the same direction, trying to achieve the same thing. So it's a really interesting point around how, you think of collaboration or even networking, and it can be you can be a one-way street where you think, well, what am I going to learn or gain from this? But then also we've all got our own skill sets, and that other people within the industry are looking to gain from us. So it's like you say, you get what you give, really.
I think there's a bit of a challenge, which touched on it at PP, when it starts at the top and it sort of flows down through the business at PP. I think that's quite a challenge to be able to have that level of confidence to go out. People see networking as a sales tool, and it really isn't. It's a solution provider, essentially. So it can touch on every single part of the business, not just sales and marketing. So, it's my day job really is about talking to people outside of the four walls that we make and build stuff and innovate stuff in, because that's where all the other brains and ideas are, where my competition is, where my suppliers are. So, but it's quite difficult to promote the strength of it to people, throughout the business. It should be happening at every level, whether it's between team members into department or manager level, where they're talking to different people or different companies outside. And that's something that I think needs to be educated. And you touched on it at the beginning. That's why I try and put an onus on it to get my apprentices to be talking to other businesses, spend time in other businesses while they're at their training stage. They're going to have less time to do it when they're in a real job. Excuse the point. I don't mean it like that, but when they're training, if you give them time and space to be able to begin to practice the art or the method of networking, that's vital, because it is quite difficult to get it reciprocated nice and evenly through the business.
I think a lot of the time it takes kind of a catalyst to get everybody on board, and I think the pandemic's a good example of that, where it was almost like, well, there's no choice but to work together and to collaborate. We recognised that very early on, and obviously there was lots of disruption around critical parts, availability of parts and components. And during that time, we set up UK MFG Unite, which is now passed on and has been inherited by somebody else, because it grew so quickly, so fast, that we couldn't really handle it on our own. And it turned into a directory of people asking for help and offering support, finding new routes, alternative suppliers, etc. And was also quite critical in us being part of the Ventilator Challenge and other member partners of that network becoming part of the Ventilator Challenge. So you need that one thing that everybody can get behind. And that's what I said right at the start, is you need to find a common goal, I think, whether that's within your own organisation or whether it's the entire industry getting behind one specific thing. And I think we see great examples of that all over the world. And again, going back to what I said before, I think we just need to start joining the dots. We've got all the things there in place. We just need to start joining the dots. Whether it's Silicon Valley and its culture of innovation, or its Mittelstand regional clusters. Denmark's got an amazing renewable energy collaboration. They've all got very specific things in mind, and everybody is behind it. Whereas I think in the UK, it saddens me to say, but I don't think we have that singular direction. Where are we all headed? I think that's what we need to work out.
Yeah, I mean, one of my points was going to be around that element of in the pandemic and what have you, there was the appetite, but it was all very much like, looking within the UK and everyone getting together. But then kind of go back to the day job, and people, it can be a distraction. Like Rowan's point, it's difficult when you've got the day job and you've got sort of goals and targets. But would you say we're playing catch up with other countries, or are we still there or thereabouts, or would you say that we've got to put a real effort in?
Big question. I don't know if I want to start answering or I want to leverage off what you say, Rowan.
Well, I think we have a great foundation and footing and springboard, whatever you want to use, to be very good. But are we starting from 3 or 4 rows back on the grid? I would say we almost certainly are. There's been a distinct lack of investment in manufacturing, or I say investment, perhaps interest, as to how important it is to our economy up until recently. And the most recent budget was one that actually began to show the green shoots of recognition that we are a huge employer and GDP creator. And that's really, really important to recognise. And that government investment is something we all need to get behind and push. And I suppose I'll just say one more thing. Richard mentioned about getting a topic that we're all sort of sold on or buy into to drive this thing forward. Well, manufacturing being vitally important, I'm going to use the term industrial strategy. It's being embarked a lot at the moment, and the country has been without one for such a long time. And we finally got the acknowledgement and recognition from government that it is important and there should be a strategy. And that's through a lot of different groups of companies lobbying for it. And you mentioned I chair the membership advisory board, national membership advisory board for Make UK. And one thing they do incredibly well is lobby government and raise awareness of what all manufacturers do in the UK and how important they are to the UK. And it's because of that joint voice, which is only brought about, coming back to the original topic, by networking and collaboration, that has actually managed to get some traction to a point where actually we've seen some government funds finally invested into manufacturing in recognition of how important it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a coherent industrial strategy would be lovely. But also investment as well. I think UK manufacturers need to think much more seriously about investment in automation and robotics and skills and development, because we're not going to get there without those things. We've got a great foundation, but there is still a lot we can improve on, especially when you look at investment in automation compared to, you're talking about other countries, and are we behind it? I think we are. I mean, I've seen reports on this and I can't remember where we sit exactly in the standings, but it's not great. So we certainly need to invest in automation and robotics, skills, people development, and bridging the skills gap. Perhaps a good time to talk about Rowan and his Income collaboration, actually, because I think that's a really, really good example of where collaboration works. There's a goal in mind. There's a challenge in terms of skills gap, and yeah, Rowan and his team and Income have addressed that and work collaboratively together to try and overcome it.
And I'll add to that, it's without government support or funding. So this is self-funded, but we post-pandemic reviewed our business strategy and model and played to our strengths, which was tool making. We manufacture high-end precision tooling, and we're one of the few in the UK that can do it to the level of tolerancing and capability that is indeed demanded on certain applications. And we were a little bit victims of our own success to a degree. So we refocused all of our sales comms strategy around winning new business in tooling. And we found ourselves in a position where we didn't have the capacity to deliver the orders that we'd secured. So I sat down at a skills council meeting at Incom, who are our training provider for apprenticeships over in Aldridge. They had a fantastic showcase CNC training facility, which was, I don't think they mind me saying, it was underutilized. And I just thought, this is travesty. There's capacity there. There's a showcase facility, and we need some of that to deliver some of the orders we've already got. And bear in mind, my other option is to outsource them to China. So it's like we need to do this in these shores. So I quickly spoke to the owners of the business and sort of pitched, how can we make this fly? Fast forward to today, we now have a dedicated tool room, which gave me that capacity I needed to deliver all the new tooling that we got. But in addition, the win-win was we jointly wrote a syllabus to upskill existing engineers to be tool makers. And that's professional training, full-time, 20-week course. And we've delivered our first cohort of training to Jaguar Land Rover. So we've now killed 2 birds with 1 stone. We've got extra capacity for making tools, and we're now training future engineers in a discipline where there is a distinct shortage for underinvestment for many, many years. And we're not only training our own, we're training other people's. So yeah, really exciting, completely self-funded, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I didn't sit in a skills network with Incom. It's as simple as that, because I just wouldn't have been on their site. I wouldn't have sort of looked, and I wouldn't have just had a coffee and chatted about it. And all of a sudden, here we are, 1.5 years later, maybe 2 years later, and it's real, it's happening, it's live.
It's interesting, isn't it? They say you generate your own luck, and like you say, by putting yourself in those positions, it's enabled this to happen. And I think sort of another stigma is the fact that they're these sort of big networking and collaborating are big organized events where, you know, you go along and there's a thought out agenda, whereas quite often it can be sitting having a coffee and then these ideas fly, and then like you say, how do we get it rolling? And fast forward a year or two and things are up and running. I think what I found really interesting when sort of discussing this topic is naturally within the UK, you know, as I mentioned, you know, we're all competitive, we have competitors, but naturally collaborating means opening yourself up and opening your business up to some of those competitors. And I believe it, you know, it's an attitude thing, isn't it? It's something people have got to get comfortable with. How did you sort of go about that? And have there been any sort of examples or instances where you've worked and sort of had success directly with competition?
We went through a period where we thought we knew who our competition were, and I suppose for one reason or another, they either failed, so they weren't there anymore, or we left it too long before revisiting that. And it sort of coincided when we refocused on what we're really good at, which is the tooling side of the business. And I decided that we need to re-educate ourselves on who our competition is. And competition comes into 2 sort of silos for me. One is financial competition, so you can map yourself against the best in industry and see where you sit financially. And the other one is capability matching. So look at your competitors who offer a similar thing. So we actually did that, repeated that exercise post-pandemic, and it was a revelation. We discovered that we were in the top sort of 25% of perceived UK competition in terms of profitability, which is a positive. But we also then discovered that actually competition didn't exist in the UK directly. Yes, there's people that do press work. There's probably 150 different press work companies, stroke tool makers, but the level of press work we're involved with and the offering and the markets we're in, and there's maybe one other, but even then we very rarely, you know, compete with them. Mm-hmm. So it sort of opened the door. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm going to write to all my competition, both UK, but actually further afield. We'd become aware of one or two in Germany and one or two in France that we were more regularly interacting with, not necessarily competing with. Anyway, all of them responded positively and said, we'd love to host you, come and see us. It wasn't quite as easy as that. We did go to some exhibitions and talk to them, and you just get a head of steam going in the conversation. Anyway, within a couple of years, because it takes time, I've been to visit all of my UK competition, three German competitors and one French competitor. And we're now closer than ever, I suppose. We don't really compete, although we do have similar customers, but they might provide the heavier end of the press work and we provide the smaller, sort of more tightly toleranced end. But I can tell you it works because, example, last year we had one of our UK competitors write to us and say, we don't want this business anymore. It's too high volume for us. It's more in what you do. It's in a stainless steel product, which we specialise in. Would you like to have a look at it? If so, we'll introduce you to the customer. And it was like, what, with no strings attached? Yeah.
I was about to ask, what was the catch?
No, there wasn't a catch. All they said to me was reciprocate if you get the opportunity in the future with some low volume work or something that doesn't suit you. So we send them inquiries that aren't right for us. We send our customers their way when it's not right for us. But ultimately, and whether they convert them or not, I don't know. All I can say is that's probably a contract per annum worth somewhere between 150 and 250,000 pounds a year, and a really good quality, close relationship, long-term partner as a customer as well. So yeah, I really can only advocate it. It's been really good for us to do that.
Yeah, it's a similar story at PP in terms of competition. It's very hard to find a direct competition, and I think it is for a lot of people. I think people get a bit too scared worrying about the competition and not looking at the opportunities. We're part of a number of networks that do sort of like cohorts and learning days and things like that, and within those cohorts you could quite easily find yourself with somebody who does something very similar to you. But you have to invite them to the factory. You talk about your processes, your people and what you do internally, and you share that knowledge, and it gets reciprocated. But what you often find, I think, is that actually you don't fit in the exact same space. And so through collaboration, you'll actually find that there's work that might come through PP that's not right for us, but there is somebody in a very similar space that it's perfect for, and vice versa. Again, it's that reciprocation. But for PP, actually, I think about competition quite a lot, being a marketer, and actually I think of it as alternatives. Think about what alternatives there are to your service as well. And actually, one of our biggest competitor is probably the customer, because the alternative is that they build this stuff in-house, they expand the facilities, they upskill more people, so on and so forth. So again, we have to make sure that we've got an absolutely amazing relationship with our customers, and that we are absolutely customer centric. And then we do have a culture of customer centricity. We're quite market orientated, so we understand pains and needs. And a lot of the time, again, to overcome a lot of that, it's about networking, it's about collaboration, it's about building a supplier base around you, a key partner base around you that can help your customer.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's probably the purest form of being customer centric, is that ability to say no, and it's probably not quite right for us, but save them the pain of searching and managing a long tail of suppliers and going, look, honestly, there's so and so down the road that are absolutely perfect for this. So ultimately, it's going to help the industry move forward if we've got satisfied customers.
Absolutely.
So I think we've spoken a lot about the power of collaboration for UK manufacturing. In order to get there, what would you say are the sort of biggest hurdles and the challenges that we're going to have to overcome?
I think it's what I said at the very beginning. Let's not work in silos. Let's let's try and join the dots. Let's try and come together, get in the same room, all under one common goal. I think that's what we need to find. I think we heard the term Industry 4.0, haven't we, over and over and over again. And, you know, perhaps that could have been something, but I think there was it's such a confusing thing to get your head around, and I don't think many people really understood what the hell it meant. But what I do see now is this term sustainability. What does that mean for UK manufacturing? I think that's the catalyst, and not just about being sustainable manufacturers, but also the opportunity that sustainability brings about. The more sustainable we are, the more innovation, the more emerging markets that will appear, the more opportunity, therefore, for UK manufacturers to leverage the benefit from that. So yeah, I think that'd be my broad answer, I suppose, to that question. I don't think there's a silver bullet. I don't think there's something that gets everybody together, unless there's another crazy pandemic and we've all got this, you know, immediate need. I think it's about just changing our behaviours, trying to see the benefit in collaboration and networking when it's done right. And once you do, you don't turn back. You won't look back.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you asked the question, I first thing that we need to all be a bit less selfish. There is a danger in the world that we're in, particularly in manufacturing, that it's survival of the fittest, and I'm going to do what's right for my business. That ain't the way to go into a collaborative relationship. So I think there's the realization that you're going to only get out what you put in, and that's really something that's quite fundamentally important. And then for me, I think a lot of the opportunities come from innovation, and whether it's in a sustainable industry, or whether it's in automating to make you more productive, or Industry 4.0, or whatever those things, all of that sits under the banner for me of innovation. And I think, you know, I can't go by without sort of talking about Innovate UK. So there's a big funding agency who have very big purse strings for development of innovative processes, products, associated in a number of different areas. Generally, you know, there's a big talk around EV development, all of that, but you name it, life sciences, med tech, all these other sort of sectors that are really difficult. They're the barriers. They're difficult industries to break into. But if you've got something innovative, or you want to work on something that is innovative, you can facilitate that through working with a collaborative project, which is part funded by Innovate UK. So there is a barrier, cost. There is a barrier, sort of unknown, sort of diving into an unknown market, but there is a solution there. There is a collaborative platform that essentially pays for safe R&D. And that was a revelation for us when we found that and got involved with it. Some of it's worked, some of it hasn't worked. But overall, I'm a more diverse business as a result. And even the stuff that didn't work was 60 to 70% funded. So it keeps people employed. It keeps us learning. Even if it learns what we can't do, that's okay as well.
I think that's the culture of innovation, and that's quite important. That actually sometimes we need to take some risks because we don't actually know the outcome all of the time. What I would say though about Innovate UK and amazing funding opportunities through networks like that, but also we need to ensure that any economic wealth created stays in the UK. That's the next step, because we can fund projects and we can fund new technology and innovation. As soon as it comes to the manufacturability of that, we need to keep it in the UK.
That's really interesting.
Low cost economies.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a really valid point, because I won't name them on this, but there's 6 or 7 projects we've been involved with, and of the 6 or 7, 1 or 2 aren't necessarily focused on keeping it in the UK. even though the development and all the prototyping has been done by UK companies, part funded by Innovate UK and UK government. And perhaps UK government needs to be a wee bit stronger about that in terms of the rule book, because it very often gets flexed. Because, you know, with the right solution, we can be globally competitive. Brandauer are living proof of that. We're supplying products to India, to China, Egypt, you know, traditionally lower cost economies, and we're supplying product to them. And that's because there's minimal labour content in what we do. It's highly automated and highly repeatable to a very, very high quality standard that those particular regions can't necessarily achieve. So I completely agree with that, Rich.
Yeah.
So let's say conversations like these start to happen more and more. As we said, there's brilliant work happening. So let's say everyone takes your advice and we're all collaborating more. Over the next sort of 4, 5, even to 10 years, what sort of opportunities excite you the most?
For me, it's this opportunity around sustainability. And especially things, you know, green tech, clean energy, renewables, future mobility, agri-tech. These are solving issues that the entire world are facing. So we know that they're important. And I think that the UK should be at the very forefront of the technology and of the solutions. And that's why I think, you know, that should be our singular focus as an industry. Because I think that's where the most opportunity is, but also it's the right thing to do. It plays into, you know, ESG considerations or imperatives that will only accelerate. So for me, it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'd probably split my answer up into 2 or 3 different sort of opportunities. I think for every individual, I think there's both a career opportunity to collaborate on some level, and I would recommend that everybody just tries one networking role, voluntary role. Get out there, do something different that gets you outside of the business, whether that's volunteering for a charity, whether that's working for, you know, doing some work on the regional board for Make UK, whether that's joining a, you know, I don't know, a Chamber of Commerce networking evening once a month. Do it. Go and see what's going on outside of the 4 walls that you work in every day. It's all too easy to do that. It will benefit your business and it will benefit your career. The second one for me is probably on Brandauer's perspective. Where's the big opportunity? Well, funny enough, by networking, we've discovered that it's not only what we make that's sort of in, you know, very slim supply, whether that be tools or high volume metal components, it's what we know is in very short supply. And I suppose we're in the process of bolstering our business model as a subcontractor, making tools or supplying metal bits, to being a solutions provider, a service provider, to a point now where we're getting regular approaches, and this has come directly from collaborative working, to advise them how to make something, how for them to do it in-house. Well, they're never going to do it on their own. They need advice to it, but there's a value to our advice, and there's a value to our knowledge. And we've opened a consultancy arm now, whether that be around management advice, whether that be around design for manufacture, a full turnkey production line. Obviously, it's around the topics that we're good at, but it's a consultancy business essentially as well. What a big opportunity that's essentially spun out of us talking, sharing, and understanding where the market pulls are and where the market knowledge gaps are as well. Probably the 2 areas of advice I would give going forward, an opportunity.
Well, it can only be a positive, can't it? And it'll take everybody, like you say, it's a skill to adopt, but having that consultancy mindset and having that collaborative mindset and opening yourself up and putting yourself in the position to benefit from it. And Richard, from your side, I know that, you know, shorter term than the question I asked, but you've got the PP Plus, which is exciting in the next sort of, well, it'll be within this year, won't it? So that again is another way of really fostering that idea of collaboration and reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited about PP Plus. It's kind of already in existence, actually. We kind of soft launched it a couple of years ago, and the whole idea came off the back of, you know, noticing different types of inquiries and things from different types of businesses that were, you know, innovating or disrupting in the market. And whilst at the time they weren't exactly ready for a strategic outsourcing partnership, there were lots of ways we could help those businesses. And so that's kind of where PP Plus was born, was by getting our network involved. So essentially what PP Plus is a support network for innovators and market disruptors, specifically positioned to some of the markets I mentioned before around green technology. And we split that support into 3 pillars. We have manufacturing partners with PP at the centre. We have business partners, whether that's scaling up coaching or might be legislative demands. It could be IP protection. It could be marketing and PR support. And also we have access to academia through our academic partners. So basically, these are all people that we know and trust, but we're bringing them together under this network to support the growth of technological innovation in the UK. That's our goal. And so, yeah, we're really excited by it. And this year is going to be the big launch where, you know, it's got its own strategy now. It's got its own brand. We're going to really push PP Plus this year.
Really exciting to see how it develops, and like you say, we'll keep posted on it, and then maybe in a year or two we can get back and hear about all the successes from it.
Yeah, well, so, you know, we've got some really good case studies already. You know, I could talk about case studies through PP Plus all day long, but it's really nice to see as well. You know, recently actually we've got something going through the factory, full scale production that came to us a couple of years ago through a network. So it was an introduction through a network. We then introduced that customer to a number of our suppliers, a design partner, and we helped them with some supply chain issues. And that's kind of what it's all about. That's how it's supposed to work. So yes, we haven't seen, you know, business for ourselves for, you know, 2 years since that introduction, but we've supported them on that growth journey. And now we're their manufacturing partner. So again, it's that reciprocation. It's about help, you know, lending a helping hand. There's one case study actually that's interested in innovative new technology, and I introduced them to Rowan because it was all to do with certain motor technology. So yeah, it's a wonderful network to have, and I think what we've realised is that we need to shout about this network. Let's not just do all this stuff behind the scenes. If we promote it, then hopefully we'll bring more innovative technology to our door, more things that we can help and invest in.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty out there that can stand to benefit from it. We'll put some links in the description for both Brandauer and PP, and for any other viewers that want to see some more. So we'll wrap this up. They're really good having you both here today. Thank you for sharing your insights on the topic, and sort of wish you good luck with everything going forward. Special thank you to all of our listeners for listening to us. Don't forget to subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode, and head over to the website for more information on anything else that you need that has been mentioned in the podcast. That's all for now. See you soon.